Hey there, man, we are so glad that you're with us. Thank you for making Obi-Wan a part of your Easter. And by the way, happy Easter! Man, we hope it's been a good one so far. Hey, I want to start out with this thought. You might want to write it down, and it's this. Never put a period where God places a comma. Have you ever had thoughts like this before? No matter how hard I try, it just doesn't seem, I just can't change. I'm staying the same. I still struggle with the same things. No matter how hard I try, my situations are just staying the same. Man, this has taken a huge toll on my life. Will I ever recover? I've done everything I know to do. I guess this is how it's going to be. Or man, I've even asked God. I've hoped, I've believed, I've tried, I've tried to do what I can, and it just seems like it's not going anywhere. You can get to a place where you're like, is this all there is? You know, if we're being honest, we've all been there at one time or another. And if we're not careful, we can end up putting a period where God may be only placing a comma. Here's what I mean. We think it's the end, but He knows it's not. Thankfully, this doesn't have to be all there is. And we're going to discover today through one of Jesus's I am statements that we should never, ever put a period where God puts a comma. Now, there's this man named Lazarus who lived in Jesus's time, and he fell really, really sick. And his sisters sent Jesus a message. And here's what's interesting. Instead of immediately going to Lazarus, Jesus stays where he's at for a couple days, and Lazarus ends up dying. It's like, what the heck? Jesus, do you not care? And we'll actually talk about that later. But when Jesus arrived, one of his sisters met him. Let's pick up the story from there. We're going to find it on the screen. John 11 says this. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, I want you to hear the desperation. I wish you had been here. Now, put yourself in Martha's shoes. Could you imagine how she felt? She sent for Jesus. She trusts in Jesus. That's why he sent for him. And he shows up late. And in her mind, if he would have come earlier, he could have saved Lazarus. That's why she ends up saying this, and you'll see it on the screen. Then my brother would not have died. But I know that even now, God will give you anything you ask for. Jesus actually mentions that her brother will live again, and Martha mentions that she realizes that her brother will live again, but that he would be brought back to life sometime in the future on the last day. Listen to how Jesus responds to this in the next verse that we see on the screen. Jesus said to her, here's what's so cool. Listen in. This is for you. This is for me. I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live, even if they die. You know, it's interesting. Martha was bringing up a resurrection almost as a teaching, and Jesus made it personal. Hey, this isn't just about some general teaching about some future event. It's about someone, and you're looking at him. You're looking at the person who can restore. You're looking at life. I am. I have a question for you. Is the person of Jesus just a story to you? Does he just have some good thoughts to ponder here and there? Is he just someone to think about at Christmas or Easter? Or is he personal? Is he your friend? Will you let him restore you? Is he life to you? Now back to the story. Mary, Lazarus' other sister, connected with Jesus too, and she actually had a similar comment to Martha's. It's like, I wish you would have been here. My brother wouldn't have died. But it goes from bad to worse with Mary. She starts crying, and who can blame her? Her brother just died. She was trusting Jesus to come, and he didn't right away, and he ends up dying. dying, but she starts crying, and then because she starts crying, other people start crying, and then Jesus even started crying. You have to admit it. You're going to admit it. Admit it right now. Have you ever started crying because someone else was crying? You tried not to, but they just look so sad. You felt so bad for them. Like you start tearing up because someone else is crying. Or how about this one? You really have to admit this one. You're watching a movie, something sad or touching comes, the dust in your eyes, your eyes are starting to water up, and you discreetly look over to the person or people that you're watching a movie with to see if they're crying, and if they are, you're like, good, now everything can flow, and if they're not, you're just like, I'm not crying, you're crying. Anyway, say this with me. Jesus cried. Say it again. Jesus cried. You're smarter than you think. You just memorized a whole verse in a church service. So don't ever say again you can't memorize Bible verses. You just memorized one in like 3.6 seconds. Obviously, I'm just having a little fun with you. But can I pause for a moment? Some view God as just some stoic being out there. Jesus cared, and that was revealed through him breaking down and crying. He cares about your pain, your doubts, your discouragement, and your defeats. He's not oblivious or unmoved by what you face or go through. He's a friend that will sit with you as you're going through it and walk with you as you move forward. Back to the story, Jesus ends up going to the tomb that Lazarus was in. Lazarus said, and he hadn't died for just like 15 minutes. Lazarus was already in this tomb for a few days. So Jesus starts talking to God, and he asks and he thanks his Father that he hears him. Let's pick up the story from there. It's really cool. It says this, then Jesus called out in a loud voice. He probably wanted people to hear this, right? He called out in a loud voice. He said, Lazarus, come out. Look what happened. The dead man came out. You see, Jesus just revealed in action, not just in words, that he is the resurrection and life. It wasn't just a statement. He had to start with a statement to make it clear who he was. Hey, this is who I am. But now he's backed it up. He just put a comma where everyone else was putting a period. Now, I need to be clear. It doesn't mean that God never puts a period on something. Sometimes some things are final. And sometimes we won't see outcomes until after this life. And we need God's help, God's perspective, God's comfort, and God's strength to move on when something is final. That said, sometimes we put a period where God puts a comma. We think it's final, we think it's dead, but it's just a comma to God. And I want to talk about a few ways where we typically place a period on our lives when God may only be placing a comma in our lives. And now that we know the story, at least in general, let's unpack it a little bit more. Do you remember when I mentioned that Jesus didn't go immediately? He waited a couple days. It's like, man, what the heck? If he didn't wait, maybe Lazarus wouldn't have died. And I think that's something that we can struggle with. The first thing that we can often put a period on, and God may be placing a comma, is when things turn out differently than I thought. When things turn out differently than I thought. See, one of the ways it turns out differently is when it takes longer than we thought, right? Most expect to struggle from time to time. It's part of life. But when things go longer than we thought, it can be very disorienting and lonely. Will my dreams ever come true? Will we ever get ahead, or will we always live this mundane and average life? Will this relationship always be this way? Will the pain of loss ever stop? You see, when this starts to happen, you may start to believe that all the cards are stacked against you. You may start to wonder if God is there or if he even cares. It's almost as if you're putting a period on it. Even if it doesn't take as long, it still can be tough when it doesn't turn out the way we thought. Take Mary and Martha. Man, they trusted Jesus. That's why they sent for him. That's why they asked him to come. That's why both of them said that, man, our brother wouldn't have died if you would have been here. Take our lives. Man, that didn't go as planned. Man, I never thought my life would come to this. This isn't what I signed up for. Wait, I've trusted God. I feel like I've done what he's asked, and my life still isn't anywhere near what I envisioned it to be. Here's another reason I believe we can put a period where God may be placing a comma. Number 2, when I see others win, but not me. You know, before Jesus brought Lazarus back to life, there was some chatter going on. People doing what people does. People love to chatter, right? And people were chattering, and the chatter that was going on amongst the people was, man, he healed a blind man. Why couldn't he have kept him from dying? Maybe it seems like everyone's winning at life but you. I'll be transparent. I've had times like that, whether it's my friends being in a better financial situation than me, or people I look up to being at seemingly at least a more rewarding part of their life. You know, when it seems like others are winning and we're just struggling, it can be hard. Man, their family doesn't seem to have as many problems as we do. Maybe the good I'm doing in my family is just a waste of time. Maybe, man, why did he heal them, but I prayed too, and I'm still stuck with my diagnosis? Maybe God doesn't hear my prayers. Man, look at how big their house is. Look at how, man, this seems like everything's brand new. The couch, the TV, the tablecloth, the towels, just everything. Oh, there you go, something else new, a new puppy, right? Man, look at all the new things that they have. Man, I can barely afford the one bedroom I'm in. Why are they blessed and I'm not? Why do they get all the opportunities? Why do they get all the smarts? Why do they get all the looks? Why do they get all the breaks? See, if we're not careful, you see the conclusions. Can you see the conclusions we come to when we're not careful? When we're struggling, but we're seeing others winning? It's almost as if we put a period, even maybe on our own identity. It's almost as if we put a period on what God can do in our lives. Let's talk about one more reason we put a period where God may place a comma. And it's this, number 3, my failures. My failures. The Bible tells us that we all fall short, and God is not bringing that up to leave us hopeless. He shares that with us to let us know that we're all in the same boat. There's no perfect person that walked this earth except for Jesus. He shares it with us to let us know that we need someone to take our failures. You see, we've all made decisions that have derailed our progress. We've made decisions that have negatively affected others. Some of us carry shame and regret on our shoulders, so much so, for so long, that it's become a part of our identity. Maybe you've even done something recently and you know that you shouldn't have. You knew it was wrong. You see, failure has this terrible, horrible way of allowing us to feel that things are final. Whether it's because it takes longer than we thought or because it turns out differently than we thought, when we see things happen for others or even our failures, all of these things cause us at times, if we're not careful, to lose hope. And if we're hopeless long enough, it makes us want to give up. I've been there. I'm sure you have too. And when we give up, it's as if we put a period on it. God knew that, and that's why he encourages us not to give up. Listen in, it says this in Galatians 6. It says, let us not become tired of doing good. Here's what's so key. Listen in, underline, take notes. Hear this. At the right time, we will gather a crop. Here's something else that's just so key. If we don't give up. You see, God knew that oftentimes when we give up, what we end up not doing anymore is doing good. The good that could end up helping us get back on track. The good that could start to help things turn around. We're like, what's the point of trying with this person? They'll never change. What's the point of going after my dreams? They'll never come true. I've been doing it for so long now. What's the point of even praying or trusting God? It doesn't work, at least for me. What's the point? You fill in your own blank. You see, God doesn't want us to give up. And here's the thing. I know that you don't want to give up either. You're just tired. You're just done. That said, what do we do when it feels like things are dead or dying in our lives? See, Jesus doesn't want us to give up, but he does want us to surrender. And because he's someone that restores and brings life back to us, remember, we can trust him. If you're struggling that things turned out differently, maybe it's surrendering your time frame to him and also taking a new approach. You see, oftentimes when things don't go the way we planned, we end up doing things over and over and over. And you know what happens? We go insane. And when we go insane, that's when we want to give up. We get tired. So maybe it's surrendering your time frame and asking Jesus for a better way. Let me give a couple examples. Maybe the honeymoon phase of a certain relationship is over, and now it's not where you thought it would be. Maybe it's giving the timing to God, but it's also taking a fresh approach to the relationship. Maybe it's forgiving them instead of doing nothing or wanting to get back at them, like, the silent treatment or, even something worse where you're just trying to get back at them. Maybe it's saying, I'm sorry if you realize that you had a part in it too. Here's another example. Maybe you don't need a new dream, you just need a new way of looking at it. Maybe it's allowing Jesus to help you step out in faith instead of letting your fear rule your decisions. If you're struggling with seeing others win, if we're not careful, we can, and I want you to hear this out, and I hope that you'll take it the right way, but if we're not careful, and if we're struggling, it seems like we're just always seeing other people win. If we're not careful, we can accidentally, I'm not saying it's intentional, but we can accidentally start to have a victim's mentality. And God doesn't want us there. He's called us to victory, not to victimhood. Man, everybody wins but me. Everyone has it better than me. Can I not have good things? Here's a story that I hope encourages you. I had a buddy a few years ago that was pretty discouraged. He was just at a place where he wanted to be able to buy a home for his family. And he'd been doing that for a while, and he was just at a place where he just didn't think he'd be able to. And he's really discouraged. He kind of got to a place where he's like, I will never, ever, ever be able to buy in San Diego. And it was discouraging. He even admitted that, and it wasn't a lot, but he even admitted that he was a little bit kind of disappointed in God even. He's like, man, I feel like I'm being honest. I feel like I'm giving. I feel like I'm working hard. Why isn't this happening for me? But here's what started to happen to him as over time. He realized, listen in, new way of doing things, right? He realized that there was some sacrifices he would need to make to see that dream come true. He realized that there was some things that he was overspending in that he would have to pull back so that he could start to see some of these dreams come true. Here's the thing. He still doesn't have the condo, but he has a better perspective on how to get there now. Why do I bring this up? Because when we walk into someone's better home or better life or better whatever, we often don't see the sacrifices they made to get there. It can't always be about, I hope, I pray. That's needed. Don't stop doing that. We do need to hope. We do need to pray. But oftentimes, God is looking for us to do things differently too. Here's another thing. All of our journeys, and I hope this is going to bring freedom to you. All of our journeys are unique and different. Your career is different than the next person. And maybe you don't make as much, but you love what you do. Loving what you do really does mean something. Your family is different than yours. Maybe they don't have the struggles you do, but I can tell you, from being a pastor since 2001, I can tell you they have unique struggles too, even if you don't know about them. So maybe you don't need a new life. It's just being thankful for the unique journey that you're on. God, I know I don't have some of the things that others have, but thank you for the unique journey I'm on. Thank you for the career I have that helps me provide for my family. Lord, yeah, my family sometimes drives me nuts, but I'm thankful for them, or whatever the example might be. Now, if you're struggling with your failures, there's typically two ways to go about it. Let's watch this short clip of Mike Tyson to see the first way to go about it.
All I did was, my whole life was telling me that when I die, all I'm going to do is apologize. I felt all the pain I ever caused somebody, all the pain I ever caused people in my journey in this world. I didn't see anybody that felt the pain. I couldn't apologize enough. I was so happy that I woke up, I believe we have to pay for our sins. I believe we have to pay.
You can pay.
I haven't paid enough. If I die tomorrow, I've won. I have to write the world a check. I was overpaid. I have to pay for my sins.
I don't know if you noticed, but a few times Mike Tyson said something like, I have to pay for my sins. I have to pay for my sins. I have to pay for them. He isn't alone in his thinking. Many think this way. And when you go it alone, you don't have anyone else to pick up the pieces. You don't have anyone else that can pay for it. But here's the cool thing. We don't have to do it that way. This is the hope of Easter. This is the hope that can be found in Easter. That's why Jesus died. And that's why he came back to life, so that we don't have to pay for our failures or do it on our own. Here's another story. A person once shared their story with me. Listen in. They say this: I always thought Christianity was brainwashing. I believe you just needed to be a good person and your life would be okay. At a certain point, my life began to fall apart because I was trying to live life my way. I was making up my own rules and not taking into account my family's feelings. I felt like I had control of my life, but things still didn't pan out how I thought. I made the choice to recreationally use illegal drugs. I felt like I could control my use, but it turned into an addiction. Listen to this next part. It became a short-term fix for a long-term problem. Before I knew it, I started losing everything. I quit my job. I lost material items we bought for our family. I couldn't even pay my bills. Eventually, my wife and I made the decision to sell our house and live separately. Now, let me stop there. It's starting to sound like a period, isn't it? It's starting to sound pretty final. Listen in, though. My wife started attending church regularly about a year before our separation. During our separation, I realized it was important to her, and I wanted to be a part of her and my kids' lives. So I made the decision not to live life my way. When I really started going to church, I began to hear God's voice of encouragement. I turned a corner. I chose to accept Jesus as my forgiver and was baptized. Since then, I've still encountered internal struggles and made mistakes. However, I know God's love and grace will always bring me back to Him and give me the restart I need. I'm sure you could tell, but I love that story. Why? Because that season of failure just turned into a comma because he surrendered to Jesus. While he couldn't have a do-over, Jesus gave him a restart. You see, when we fail, it's surrendering by asking Jesus to forgive you. Whether you follow Jesus or not, it's asking him to forgive you. If you are following him, it's asking him to give you a fresh start. Say, Lord, I'm sorry. Give me a fresh start. If you're not following him yet, you can choose to do so today. It's accepting him to be your forgiver and leader and asking him for a fresh start as well. Back to the story of Mary and Martha and Lazarus one more time. Right after Jesus reveals that he's the resurrection and life, he makes a statement and then asks a question. Let's look at it. In John 11, it says this, "And whoever lives by believing in me will never die." Here's his question. Do you believe this? So here's my question for you. Do you believe he can restore you? Do you believe he can bring life back to you? Just like Jesus revived Lazarus, what area of your life needs reviving? Where do you need to surrender to him? Maybe pick one from today. Maybe things haven't gone as planned. Maybe your fresh start is surrendering the timing to him and asking him for a new way to go about things. Yes, you're going to keep hope and you're going to keep praying, but it's not just about that. It's about giving him the timing and doing it in new and fresh ways. Maybe it seems like everyone else is winning but you. Jesus, I surrender. Bring life to me by showing me how unique and different my journey is, and help me to be thankful for the journey I'm on. You really have given me things to be thankful for. Maybe you've failed, maybe even badly. Jesus, forgive me. Bring life back to me. Give me a fresh start. You know, maybe death is a period for you. You're terrified of death. But see, when you ask Jesus to be your forgiver and leader, even death is just a comma. Your forever isn't in doubt anymore. Maybe life is just one big period to you. Can I say, Jesus really can bring fresh purpose and life to you as you follow him. Let's pray. Jesus, I thank you that you are who you said you are, and it just wasn't words to you. It's real. You proved it, and you've shown it over and over. And I pray for my friends today. Lord, I pray for relationships to be restored. I pray for the person that's been praying for their healing to come. I pray that you would heal them if they need a healing, God. I pray that you would show them how to do things differently. Yes, it is about hoping and it is about praying, but Lord, it's about doing things too. Would you show my friends that are watching right now what they need to do? Show them, Lord, is there an area of their life that they need to surrender to you? Lord, I pray that dreams will be revived in people's hearts again. I pray that passions will be revived in people's hearts again. And that this time they will not let fear stop them. They would not let time stop them. If it turns out differently than they thought, that they wouldn't let that stop them. Because God, you're the one that often gives us our dreams, God. And so Jesus, if there's someone here today where death is just maybe a period to them, would you show them? And maybe that's you. You're watching right now and you realize that's you. Death doesn't have to be a period. It can be a comma. And it's simply praying something like this: Jesus, be my forgiver and leader. Thank you for being the resurrection and life. Thank you for this thing called Easter, which means that you went to the cross, but man, you didn't let death stop you. You came back to life. I ask you now to be my forgiver and leader. For all my friends, God, give them fresh hope. Help them to believe again, so much so that they'll find fresh ways that they would rely upon you. That you are the person that restores, but that they will also find fresh ways to go about this thing called life. Thank you, Jesus, for being our hope. Thank you for dying, and thank you for coming back to life. And we pray these things in your name. Amen. You know, this concludes our series, I Am. Man, we really do hope that you know Jesus on a somewhat of a deeper level, at least somewhat on a deeper level, if not on such a deeper level. And because of that you can trust him on a greater level. Here's a sneak peek at the message series we're starting next week. You'll definitely want to be a part, so make sure you're back here next week. But for now, have an awesome rest of your Easter, and we'll see you next time.